All right, so thanks for coming to misec. Announcements. We have a panel next Saturday, the 22nd, in Southfield at Tech Systems about building InfoSec communities. So like kind of how misec formed. We're going to have a panel of, I don't know what you'd call them, just
community members?
Yes, high-level community members.
Extinguished community members.
Extinguished community members, yes. They're going to be on a panel and answering a bunch of questions about how to create events like this and get things going. So if you're interested in that or coming out on Saturday, there should be events on misec.org. You'll be able to see more information about that. I think that's it. If you guys haven't heard about Converge, make sure you go to Converge. There's a whole website about stuff like that too. So cool. Let me know if you have questions. I'll turn it over to Josh and your talk.
Does Kyle want to do his horrible joke in Lansing?
No, that's a Jackson.
That's a Jackson thing only? Alright, so no horrible joke today. But I'm done. Alright, so my name is Josh Ruggles. This is scripting and automation for beginners and procrastinators. This is mostly going to be demo. I'll talk a little bit about how it is, and we can have a forum about how I did that. But I will be showcasing Hack 5's brandy new and shiny Bash Bunny that's going to be taking care of all of this. So, on the sad note, no PowerPoint. Oh crap, that's not that. So, scripting, automation, anybody in the room that actually heavy into doing scripting and or automation? A couple of people, all right, cool. So, who in the room has actually thought about doing it and is a little daunted by learning a scripting language? Fair enough. Who's afraid to raise their hand? Me. So, scripting can be for a lot more than just work. It can be for absolute hilarity and fun, or utter laziness, because I can have it just log my computer in for me. Close out a window, go away. Bring up my terminal and do stuff for me. So if you have a task that you want to do that you'd rather not type in the command for it, you can have something that takes care of that for you and unmount your device. So where I work in my industry, most of the, let me make sure I stay on camera, most of the scripting gets taken care of for chef automation or things of that nature. It also goes on to do stuff with your testing competencies. So if you're going to be going on and doing application testing, you go through system tests and user acceptance and all that stuff. There's usually security testing scripts. Then you have other random scripts that get run for whatever other task, and it's an industry thing. But a lot of people don't know that you can just do stuff because you want to be lazy about it or procrastinate, and I don't feel like taking care of the task, and find out who you are. So, does anybody know some of the major industry automation tools? I know one person does. No? There's Chef, which is one of the ones that I mentioned. You should know, you watched it yesterday.
That's what I'm saying out of it.
Fair enough.
I found auto it in a lot of malware.
Yeah. So, as long as my Bash Bunny decides that it's going to do what it's supposed to do, maybe I should do what I'm supposed to do with it first. Wrong switch. Human error always screws up automation.
That's why we automate.
So, yes, that's why we automate things, very much so. So, as it was supposed to do, close the window, bring up a terminal, and it's going to show you things like AutoSys. It's one of the major industry automating tools for system testing. And then if you're on Linux and Unix platforms, most people should be familiar with cron jobs. So those are automation tools. You can do scheduled tasks and things like that. If-then statements, for loops, all of that fit very well in with cron jobs and AutoSys. That's pretty much what they're geared for. So aside from industry stuff, the Bash Bunny or other similar devices you can make with Arduino or USB Rubber Ducky or any similar devices that were spawned off of from the similar tools can automate a lot of the mundane tasks. And you have a spreadsheet that you log your hours in every week for work. Why not just have it set up so you can do your time and make sure the numbers are correct, plug it in, and have the whole thing take care of itself for you. We also have JSON files. So if you're building networks, especially like one of the things that I'm doing right now is building networks using JSON files in Amazon Web Services. So you can do stuff like that. And if you really want, you can show kitties as soon as it, yeah, kitties. So it's not just a daunting thing. It's not something that's actually extraordinarily hard, but you can have it do anything you want. Any questions?
There's someone on the internet that would like to know more about your Shenanigan theorist.
Shenanigan theorist. Okay, so self-proclaimed hacker. Try to get in trouble and get away with it, I guess is the best description for a shenanigan theorist. I like to come up with situations in where I could get myself into trouble or figure out how to break into a building but not actually execute. I guess that would be the best way to call it off as a theorist. Okay. I'm going to assume that you're satisfied with the answer.
So I asked this question yesterday, but I figure it might be a good one
Sure.
today. But so how do you write all these scripts? Like with Ducky Scripts, what is it like? Like how easy is it to learn?
Okay. So we will go ahead and show off the scripting portion of what happened for this speech and under its hood. What I used for doing this speech instead of using PowerPoint, because I wanted to show off the capabilities of automation and using scripting to essentially do my entire speech, as you guys had already seen, I used the Bash Bunny's capabilities of acting like a USB Rubber Ducky. USB Rubber Ducky, for those of you who don't know, is a USB device that can store a payload or a text file that will be read at the computer level as a keyboard, which is inherently trusted across all operating systems. This specific language that I was using is what they call Ducky Script. So Ducky Script, in the language here you see a Q that's before everything, like enter, which is the enter key, or a string where it actually says that it's going to be this. The string tells it that it's, you know, I want you to type this. The Q is an alias for quack. And when I'm telling it to quack, I'm telling it to, I want you to do this keyboard function. So I have quack alt F4. So it's going to actually perform an F4 function. When I ran the script, and I can show you again, I gotta reload round 1 into the payload for switch 1. So the reason why I wrote that in there, and I know I can turn them off, but that's somewhat not the point. If you know it's going to do something, you can always script it in there to take care of it for you. So as I plug in a device and it reads as a storage device, my computer is set up to automatically pop the folder up so I can start working in that device. in the scripting language, I told it to do an Alt F4. It's going to make that window go away because it did an Alt F4 after it, there it goes. And then it runs GUI and terminal and blah, blah, blah. So I'll pull that up again and I'll show you where those languages are at. Actually, I can pull up the page. I think I loaded it on the Ducky. So Ducky Script is actually one of the easiest ones to get around. If you know how to operate the keyboard, excuse me. If you know how to operate the computer from the keyboard fairly well, then it nearly makes it irrelevant to doing any other scripting. If you can do it directly from the keyboard, you have physical access. If you have physical access, you also have access to a USB port. And you can just plug in a device like this and you can have it do things like your Alt F4. GUI key for Linux is the same, it's the Windows key. On a Windows operating system, you can use GUI or the string Windows, and it'll do the same thing. You'll get your Windows up, and if you want to bring up Run, you do Windows R. After that, you're going to want it to crack CMD, and then you can bring up a command prompt in Windows. That's just as easy as that in Ducky Script. So they wrote this specifically to make it very, very easy for you to figure out. Also, the delays that I have in here. So we know that if you're on a Windows platform, you press Windows R, takes it a couple of milliseconds to pop up. If you don't put in a delay, the Ducky is going to immediately follow the next script or the next line, and that's going to happen in a millisecond. Put in a delay. The delays here are in milliseconds, so I put in a 300 millisecond delay, and it says, okay, I'm going to pause and then keep going. For Ducky Script, they've only designed it to do up to 10 seconds. Most programs that you're going to be using directly off the keyboard for this type of thing aren't going to take longer than 10 seconds to boot. I don't know anybody that's going to be trying to bring up, I don't know, Final Cut Pro on an Apple machine to run a Ducky Script on, because you're not doing video editing on automation. Challenge accepted. So, and then one of the other key things too is if I'm using a device like this, everything that I do with mine, I always put in an unmount at the end of it. So if I know that the command's successfully completed, I can make the device unmount itself if I'm using it as a storage as well as whatever else I did. So that way when it completes, I don't have a brain fart and rip my device out while it's still reading the file system. Along with that, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Rubber Ducky, or I'm sorry, the Bash Bunny, it has portions of it that emulate things similar to the Land Turtle by Hack 5, the USB Rubber Ducky, a USB flash storage, and a 2 gigabit per second Ethernet, or USB Ethernet. It has no out, so you're not going to plug in an Ethernet cord and actually route your traffic back out through the device, but it will take over the computer as the default gateway because it's got the fastest route for an Ethernet device. But the way you define what that is up here. So up here I have it as HID and storage. So human interface device is going to be your keyboard. Storage gives it access to the 2 gigabits or 2 gigabytes of storage memory that's on there for USB storage. I don't need to save that. Where did I have them? Default. By default, when you get it, it'll be ECM Ethernet, which is going to be that USB Ethernet device, similar to the Land Turtle, and it also brings up storage, so you have access to the storage. And you see that it's got Bash up here as well. This device is not limited to just using Ducky Script. Ducky Script is specific to the human interface device, but is capable of running Bash, Python, or any other scripting language that you want to use. So if you're more familiar with HTML and you want to use HTML script in it, I'm sure that you can pump that straight through it as well. So, and one of the other nice things that they've put in with this is they've included a really small quad-core Linux box that's in this. So this is actually running a Linux box. When you have the Ethernet switch on for the attack mode and the payload, or if you're in arming mode, which is one of the 3 switch positions that it has, it'll allow you to do an SSH session. So you can putty into the Linux box that's in the device and preload other programs that are specific to Linux. So if you wanted to have certain pen testing things that run scripts directly off of that box, you can run those through the Ethernet from the device through USB into the machine that you're doing your test on, or whatever you're wanting to do on it. Was there any other questions?
Can
Yes,
you
sir.
have the scripts run in the background, or like when all that's running, if you type on the keyboard, is it going to interrupt the script?
Yeah, so there are ways with your scripting, especially with Bash. Bash and Python are great for doing stuff that are in the background. You can bring up commands in a terminal that's not showing up on the main window. For my demonstration, I wanted those to be right in front of you. But yes, you are totally capable of having stuff run in the background.
Sweet.
So when you're writing these scripts the first time around, when you were showing us, you kept unplugging the bash one. Is there a way to like do while debugging it to just run it without having to unplug it every time?
Yes. So the reason why I was unplugging it every time was another reason, another demonstration purpose of what I was doing. So you can see that it has a file structure and its own directories list, or writing its own thing. It's got 2 gigabytes of flash memory for you to use. And its payload, you have a library section, then you have switch 1 and switch 2. On the side of the device, and for those of you that are actually watching on the internet, I can hold the device up here in just a moment. It's got a 3-position switch. So I can load a script in one switch and a different script in another switch. For what I was doing, and just for demonstration, at the end of each of the scripts that I had it run for my presentation, I had it actually go through and copy my next script. So I had only one script that was loaded ready in a switch position for the presentation. After that, it was grabbing its own scripts from the library and preloading them into the next switch position. That's why I don't like touchpads. So it was preloading those files into the next switch for me and then unmounting the device. So I was having itself using its own file system to make things ready for the next time or the next thing that I had ready. You are completely capable of taking your payloads or your text files, whatever it is that you want to do, run a bash script. Once the bash script is finished running, you can have it immediately follow up and do a Python script, and then jump right into doing a Ducky script. So you just indicate in your payload what files you want to do and load all of them into your switch folder, and then as it goes through the payload script, it'll pull, I know I need this file next and then this file next. So you just preempt it with something where it says, I'm going to do Ducky, this file is located in switch position, and this is the file name. So, and then one of the other neat features that I've seen in this one, some of you may have noticed that I've got LED with a letter and a number after it. It's got a fully functional RGB light or LED that's on the top of it, so I can program it to being red, green, blue, purple, yellow, white, whatever it is that I want to flash. And then the number following that is, again, in milliseconds, and I can tell it to just be on for an insane period of time, so it's pretty much always on, or flashing at 5 milliseconds. So I can have a blinking light. So if I want my attention grabbed by doing something, say if I have an if-then statement or a for loop written in my program, check the environment, see if the see if this computer is ready for what I want to do to it. If it's good, go green and continue on with the script. Else, flash red, and then I know that either the environment's not prepped or the script failed based on an LED indication. Yes, sir.
What do I need to install in my machine in order to have Ducky Script running? Is Python?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Ducky Script will run strictly off of the hardware. So if you're using a Bash Bunny or a USB Rubber Ducky, even Arduino devices are capable of using Ducky Script. There is a library that you can pull down for Arduino devices and whatnot, but the USB Rubber Ducky and Bash Bunny have the libraries already installed on them, so you don't need to have anything preloaded on the machine to be able to use it. You just need to have the actual physical hardware that it runs off of.
Thanks.
No problem.
Didn't mind that.
And at least your volume's muted tonight.
That was pretty fun yesterday. So what other uses for this have people use Bash Bunny for?
Bash Bunny is very much in its infancy. In fact, when James asked me in December if I would do a talk, I said, absolutely. What should I do it on? Do you have any ideas? He said, do something on Wi-Fi Pineapple. Great. I'm going to be sitting around for a while. No problem. I'll do the Wi-Fi Pineapple. And then end of February came around. Hack 5 launched the Bash Bunny. I said, hey, James, guess what? I'm not doing the Pineapple. So it's very much new, and I don't have internet access on this machine. One of the other nice things too is, for those of you that are familiar with GitHub, Hack 5 has set up a GitHub repository for Bash Bunny scripts. So they're checking it. Very much would like to have comments in your scripts. If you write something you think is neat that somebody else might be able to use somewhere, good or bad, put it up on GitHub, and they'll verify your code, they'll test your code, they'll actually play around with your scripts and give you feedback. And then it's up for everybody to grab off of GitHub. So if you have the device, grab all sorts of fun things that you may or may not be allowed to do.
Like a reverse shell.
Yes.
Some persistence mechanism.
Yes.
Any other questions? Curiosities?
I did promise that I would take the Bash Bunny out and show the audience online some of the things. So,
You have to do something video-wise.
yeah, well,
You don't break it.
let me see where your screen is. I can hold my laptop up for them to see the flashing light. So everybody, I don't know if you can see that on that screen, if you can see a flashing light.
Oh, you can see
There.
the flashing light.
All right.
That's about
So right now it's, yeah, okay. So I'll hold it on closer to the camera for anybody else to see, but you guys can see that there's a flashing light on there. So that's the LED indication that you're getting. For all of mine, I had it flash white, and it was 100 millisecond flashing rhythm. So
coming in.
3-position switch.
Looks legit.
Looks legit.
Yeah.
And if you guys want, I'll pass this around. You guys can take a look at it. It's gonna be warm. Like I said, it's got a quad-core processor in there running a Linux box, so it actually was running Linux the whole time that I had it plugged in. It's also, according to them, I don't know or verified, but I'll trust Hack 5 on what they said for it. Fastest booting operating system for Linux. It takes 7 seconds to boot.
And it reboots every time you plug it in. Right? It's on.
Yeah, so when I unmount and I rip it out, it's off. When I plug it back in, it's a full restart.
There's no battery on there or anything down there by itself.
No battery. Completely run off of USB power.
So if you hook it up to like just a USB charging block, could you SSH into it, and if it was like hooked up
Do you have
to to Y? Can you connect it
Do
to
you
like
have
a Wi-Fi?
USB connectivity through your USB charging block?
No.
Then the answer would be no.
Okay, so you, okay,
Yes, it doesn't have any. It has no broadcasting
okay,
capabilities, no antennas or anything like that. So you actually have to have physical connection.
okay.
But if you plugged it into something that did have broadcasting, like a Wi-Fi pineapple,
If I plugged it into a Wi-Fi pineapple, so if I wanted to say write a script to start up an open VPN connection on my awesome Pokemon Go Wi-Fi pineapple, I could plug the USB rubber ducky or the bash bunny right into this. The device will power it if this has power, and I can run what I want through that. Or I can just have it run a script and have it shoot over the internet if I'm connected to a public route out through the pineapple as well. So if you're looking for a point-to-point VPN connection from your house, so you have it listening from your house, go to McDonald's onto a public Wi-Fi and have it shoot up and try to get your connection, so you create a VPN tunnel from McDonald's to your house. For whatever reason you would want to do that from McDonald's from, you could do that. Also, I should point out that I never leave home without my trusty micro USB to USB A. I'm running a Samsung Galaxy Note 5, and I've tried it on a few other phones. Your cell phone has enough power to put out through the USB to power the Bash Bunny, and you can run your scripts through the Bash Bunny and give it a internet connection if you need to grab down scripts for the Linux box. So if you need to do an update or anything like that while you're on the go, plug it into your mobile device and you have connection. Also should point out that most iPhones and Android devices are keyboard capable, so take that as you will.
You can use the same languages with Bash Bunny. You don't have to change it for Android, right?
Nope. So as long as you understand what a keyboard is going to do on a mobile device, use a keyboard on a mobile device.
Does it kind of emulate different things like for Apple?
It does. Actually, there is a quirk that Apple has. So lately, Apple has decided to pull another one on us with their proprietary, and most Apple computers now, if you plug in a keyboard, say I go to Best Buy or Walmart and pick up a Logitech keyboard and plug it into an Apple all-in-one or an Apple laptop, it recognizes it as this is not an Apple keyboard, an Apple certified keyboard. And it'll ask you to press buttons like what's the key immediately to the left of the right shift key, because it wants to know what's the layout, what kind of keyboard is it, or anything like that. That would give you a hiccup in plugging in the Bash Bunny to an Apple computer. Hack5's already thought of this. You can get into the actual hardware of the Bash Bunny, and Apple's going to be looking for the binaries of what register, what company made this, and you can change them. Darren from Hack5 has a YouTube video up there that shows you, gives you your instruction of how to change the registration of the human interface device registered on the Bash Bunny from a generic keyboard to this is an Apple keyboard. And then Apple doesn't care anymore.
How much is the Bash Bunny?
Bash Bunny is $99 on the Hack5 shop.
You probably want it back.
Yes, I would like to have that back, yes. If it was the USB rubber ducky, they are very much cheaper and I might not care as much, but this one is way too much fun.
So would you recommend spending $100 on that, or getting like a pocket chip and then installing the
So with a pocket chip, yes, you're going to spend a whole lot less money. If you're wanting to just play around with Ducky Script, if you're wanting to just do things that's going to be keyboard specific, so if all you're wanting to do is play around with Ducky Script, which is what I showcased here, get yourself something cheaper. USB rubber ducky I think is like $30 on a Hack5 shop if it's that expensive, any other devices that are capable of doing that, Arduino or your pocket chips, those are going to be perfect for running just Ducky Script. If you're wanting to do more, if you know how to do bash scripting, if you know how to do Python scripting, or just have an awful curiosity like myself, I would say the $100 for the bash bunny is actually worth it because you have a lot more capabilities. You're running actual scripts from the bunny instead of having to make your keyboard do it and typing out a lot more because you want to try to make a script. You actually could use Ducky Script on the host computer to go into a terminal and type out your bash script, save it, and then execute a bash script. But that would be an immense amount of work to figure out how to take care of that using Ducky code. If you wanted to do anything like that, I would suggest getting one of these. Pocket chips and the USB rubber ducky, they don't have any onboard storage for you to store extra files. So I had the AutoSys cron job and the picture of the cat. Those are all hosted locally on the Bash Bunny. They did not have to be on the machine itself, and they did not have to pull them from the internet. So if you have extra files, you have zip files, tar files, anything of that nature that you're wanting to use to, say you need to put programs on all the machines at your office because somebody wants you to. Everybody wants Jabber installed. Well, fine, screw it. 5 seconds, Jabber's installed. Plug into the next machine. So you can do it that way if you're not pushing things over the network and if you actually have to have hands-on. You can use Ducky Script to prep the host environment and then run Python script or tell it to grab the file off of this file structure and put them onto your machines at the office. So aside from all the bad things that you can do with this, it actually has almost endless uses that you can do in the professional environment and your personal life. Anything that you wanted to do with it, you can almost have no limitations. Yes, sir.
What would you say is like the coolest or your favorite thing that you've done with that so far?
So, I will let you guys know that all of this was done on my own personally owned equipment. I did not do this to any company owned or anybody else's machines. So one of the coolest things that I've done is, and the script is available on the GitHub for the Bash Bunny, nabbing Windows 10 user passwords while the machine is locked.
What was that, like the Mimikatz one?
I think it was based off of that.
Okay.
They redid the script for it. Yeah. So, and Hack 5 has a video up for it, and as soon as I saw it, I said, I gotta do this. Steal my own password on my desktop at the house. So, Windows L plugged into USB 3.0, and then all of a sudden I had a folder in the root directory on the Bash Bunny called loot. I said, what's in there? This is the hash for my password. What do you know?
I mean, at least NTLM password, or NTLM hashes was super secure, right?
Yeah,
So-
super secure.
From a defensive side, what are the best ways to prevent a device like that being plugged into a corporate network?
So, here's one of the difficult portions.
Just besides just simply disabling the USB,
Right.
I mean, you have the keyboard. Okay, that's open. That's always going to have an issue. You're looking at
Absolutely.
that.
So,
Besides limiting it down just keyboard devices.
if you could ever find a way that you needed to have a signed certificate for a certain type of keyboard, especially some of the places that I've worked at, we've used common access cards and cat card readers keyboards. Those keyboards are using signed certificates that this is a trusted keyboard on this device. If you could lock out all other generic drivers from that point, then maybe you can get around the keyboard function. But that one's going to be extraordinarily hard to do. Also, at the same time, if you have keyboard access, you have the same access as whatever user is logged into that machine. So if that user doesn't have any escalated privileges, any administrative or root privileges, on the machine, or if they've used it and Linux having root privileges through the terminal that they decided I'm not going to log out of this machine and for whatever reason used sudo bash, then you're in trouble. But other than that, as long as you have good user group security on your network, then you don't have to worry too much about what can happen on the keyboard, as long as the person doesn't know too much about what they're doing in Python scripting. Speaking of that, if they can plug the USB device in and they're good with Python scripting, you're probably going to be in trouble because they're already on your network. At that point, I would probably say more along the lines of making sure your employees are well aware of what devices are and what devices aren't authorized, and trying to enforce that as well as possible, which doesn't exist. So, I don't use this on my machines. So, I mean, I've plugged this in at my work computer and used a notepad editor. Not that I'm storing any work files or anything like that on it, but I'm not supposed to use an unencrypted device on my network. So our employees do plug in devices. At the same time, with the price point of being $100 for the Bash Bunny, you're probably not in a lot of danger of anybody running around
Leaving it plugged in.
running around a university campus and saying, "Oh, I'm gonna drop this here and drop this one here in the parking lot and see what happens." They've done that with USB rubber duckies, and gotten reverse shells just from universities that won't be named. But with the Bash Bunny, I don't think that you'd have a lot of problems with people trying to use this as a social engineering experiment to see what comes back.
Mostly an insider that
Yeah.
wants to get around.
So, and at that point, they don't necessarily need to have one of these devices to do that either.
Unless they knew somebody that was sitting across from them that had access.
Yes.
You mentioned that when you plug it in, it's got the same permissions as the user that's currently logged in. For
Mhm.
like your Windows 10 example where you're stealing the hash, is that still
The
using
window's locked, and I believe they're using a Python script that was specifically designed to bypass what the user permissions are.
It's responder, and so there's a certain
Thank you.
service in Windows that's enabled by default and has vulnerability.
Okay.
So if you're at a locked machine and you connect to it, it basically creates a network connection, and you basically have a small network connected to the machine. And in that network, you can basically run responder, which takes advantage of things. I was just looking at that. And from that, it's I forgot, it was like with SMB shares or something with that service. It'll send out the hash of the logged in user, so you can grab those credentials and then you can do other stuff.
So it's more an SMB vulnerability that they're
Yeah,
right? I mean, because if it's SMB, it's trying to authenticate or
Yeah.
send
Over the
Okay.
network.
over the network, so it's
Mhm.
able to capture that bull right out.
Yep.
Okay, so it's not
That is all the information that I didn't have on the top of my head, so thank you, Kyle.
yeah. I just remember like, you reminded me of it, like, oh yeah, because we've done a demo of that, and then
Yeah.
tried to
Yeah.
look for a defense against it. And I actually went for corporations. That's one of those default configs, and when you want to harden your endpoints, one of the things you need to do is look for services like that
Yeah.
that you're not using.
And the fun part about that exploitation is the fact with this, it now dumps that information onto the device itself instead of sending that information back across the internet to a listener. Did we have anybody else online that had any other questions?
Yes, we do have someone from the internet. He was mentioning if you want to know how fast the device booted, you could log into it or shell into it after it's booted up and run dmez.
Mm-hmm.
I'll show you how fast it's like basically loaded up.
That's fair. I guess I could do that to verify the 7 seconds to boot. Specifically what I was talking about was Hack5 claims that this is the fastest Linux operating system to boot. So I don't know that that's going to be the actual fastest or world's fastest Linux booting system, but it would be nice to actually see exactly how fast this boots and if it really does boot in 7 seconds.
Another thing you mentioned was there's some protection in Linux against poison USB devices.
Okay.
So,
I'd actually be interested in taking a look at that information if you wanted to put a link in the. This is YouTube, correct?
well, this is through another channel.
Oh,
Somebody's
okay.
watching the streaming.
Okay. This is going to go up on YouTube, though, correct?
It's, yeah, it'll be live.
All right. So if you would like to find the YouTube channel and post a link for that, I'd very much appreciate it so I can take a look at that information afterwards.
Yeah, and from the Windows side, there's products out there, endpoint security products that you can do
Yes.
like USB. The main problem is you usually then kind of punish your end users.
You
Because
very much do
You
because.
either have to then provide the standard USB device that everyone in the company is going to use
Mhm.
and replace it when they lose it. So
Yeah.
it's an
It,
upfront
and it
cost.
makes it not only does that cost the company a lot of money because they're having to put forward the cost for all the devices for their employees to use for the machines, but then a lot of people are going to get frustrated that I have to use this device and what if I lose it, and now this has got to be tagged and logged by the company, and most companies, most financial officers aren't going to look at that as a necessary step to mitigate an attack from this
And you
device.
also, there's a different risk where people use cloud services
Mhm.
to get data in versus, oh, can't use USB, oh, well, I'll just go put it on,
Yeah.
Dropbox and pull it off from Dropbox or whatever it may be, and you gotta have controls on that.
Yep. Or sending files over Slack.
With the will, there is a way.
Always a way, and that's why I like being what I am because I always like to try to find ways to break things. All right,
Any questions?
if that's it, thank you all very much.